Did you know that helping a constipated elephant can result in death by 200 pounds of explosive relief? In today's episode, we'll meet a dedicated zookeeper whose commitment to animal welfare led to the most unusual workplace accident in veterinary history, proving that sometimes success can be just as deadly as failure. Hello everyone, welcome to Wow Amazing. In this video, we will go through our Volume 30 of Top 10 Most Stupid Darwin Award Winners. But before we begin, we would like you guys to subscribe to Wow Amazing and hit the notification bell so you do not miss out on amazing and entertaining content that will surely get you amazed. Number 10, The Key Hunter. It's 2024 in Detroit, and a 41-year-old man has just realized he's dropped his car keys down an 18-inch wide sewer grate. Now, most reasonable people would call a locksmith, walk home, or even consider this a sign from the universe that they should take public transport. But our Darwin Award winner had a different plan entirely. Looking at that narrow opening, he thought to himself, you know what? I bet I can squeeze through there, head first, and grab those keys. An 18-inch opening is barely wide enough for a large pizza box, let alone a full-grown adult human being. But logic clearly wasn't his strong suit on this particular day. So down he went, head first into the sewer grate, like a human-sized cork being pushed into the world's most unfortunate bottle. The good news? He found his keys. The bad news? He also found himself completely stuck, upside down, in just 2 feet of water. Despite the shallow depth, his trapped position made it impossible to keep his head above water. When rescue workers arrived, they discovered a scene that was both tragic and completely preventable. Our key hunter had successfully retrieved his car keys, but had paid the ultimate price for his determination. The lesson here is clear. Sometimes the cost of recovery far exceeds the value of what you've lost. Next time you drop something down a drain, remember this Detroit gentleman and perhaps invest in a good locksmith instead. Number 9, The Ceiling Surfer. Our next Darwin Award winner demonstrates that some career changes are more permanent than others, especially when they involve unplanned entries through bicycle shop ceilings. It's 2024, and 24-year-old Santiago Alvarado has decided that his current profession isn't quite meeting his financial needs, so he's embarked on a new career path. Nighttime bicycle acquisition specialist, also known as a burglar. Santiago had identified what he thought was the perfect target, a bicycle shop with plenty of valuable merchandise and, in his estimation, inadequate security. His plan was simple: gain entry through the roof, drop down into the shop, grab some expensive bikes, and exit the same way he came in. The first part of his plan went smoothly. He successfully gained access to the roof and located what appeared to be a suitable entry point through the ceiling. As Santiago attempted his dramatic entrance into the bicycle shop, the ceiling tiles decided they were not interested in participating in his criminal enterprise. The ceiling gave way immediately, sending Santiago plummeting toward the shop floor below. But gravity wasn't finished with him yet. His fall was broken not by a soft pile of bicycle seats or a convenient stack of inner tubes, but by the hard concrete floor of the shop. When the shop owner arrived the next morning, he found Santiago's lifeless body surrounded by ceiling debris and scattered bicycle parts. The police investigation revealed that no bicycles were actually stolen, making Santiago's criminal career both brief and completely unsuccessful. Number 8, The Zoned Out Jogger. Our next Darwin Award winner proves that exercise can indeed be dangerous, especially when you forget to pay attention to minor details like cliffs. It's 2020 in San Francisco, and a 49-year-old stockbroker is enjoying his daily morning run along his usual route. This wasn't his first time on this path. He'd been running this route for months, which makes what happened next all the more baffling. According to witnesses, our fitness enthusiast was totally zoned when he ran, lost in his thoughts about market trends, quarterly reports, or perhaps wondering if he remembered to set his DVR. The problem with being completely zoned out while jogging is that it tends to interfere with basic survival skills, like noticing when the ground suddenly disappears beneath your feet. As he approached a scenic overlook, our stockbroker was so deep in his mental zone that he failed to notice one tiny detail: the 100-foot drop directly ahead of him. Without breaking stride or even slowing down, he jogged right off the edge of the cliff, maintaining his running form all the way down. Witnesses described the scene as surreal, watching a man literally run off a cliff like something out of a cartoon. The moral of this story is simple: When exercising outdoors, it's important to stay aware of your environment. After all, the most dangerous obstacle on any running route isn't a steep hill or rough terrain, it's the complete absence of terrain altogether. Number 7. Grim Roofer. Sometimes Darwin Awards go to those whose final moments combine burglary with becoming permanently stuck in the most embarrassing way possible. It's March 2017 in England, and a would-be burglar has identified what he believes is the perfect target, a chemist shop in Queensbury that appears to have minimal security. His chosen method of entry demonstrates the kind of creative thinking that would be admirable if it weren't so catastrophically stupid. Instead of trying doors or windows like a normal criminal, our enterprising thief decides that the roof offers the best approach. He carefully removes several roofing shingles, creating what he assumes is an adequate opening for his grand entrance. The plan seems foolproof. Drop down through the roof, grab whatever valuable medications he can find, and exit the same way he entered. Instead of landing gracefully among the pharmacy shelves, our thief becomes trapped in the narrow space between the roof and the ceiling. His own clothes, the very garments he's wearing, decide to turn against him by catching and tangling on the roof supports. The more he struggles to free himself, the tighter his clothing becomes around his neck. What started as a simple burglary has now become an unintentional by strangulation. For several weeks, the chemist shop operates normally while the trapped burglar slowly decomposes in the roof space above. The smell eventually becomes noticeable enough that authorities are called to investigate. When they finally discover the source of the smell, they find our would-be thief, well into decomposition, still trapped in the roof space. The final irony? No medications were actually stolen, making this both a failed burglary and a successful Darwin Award. Number 6. The Sandcastle King. Our next story takes place at a beach in 2024, where 21-year-old Daniel Jones decided that the best way to enjoy a day by the ocean was to create his own personal wind shelter. Daniel's plan seemed simple enough. Dig a deep hole in the sand, place a beach chair at the bottom, and enjoy a protected spot away from the coastal breeze. Most people would dig a modest depression, maybe a foot or two deep, enough to block the wind while still maintaining some connection to the surface world. But Daniel was not most people. He decided that if a little protection was good, a lot of protection would be even better. So he kept digging and digging and digging until he had created an 8-foot deep sand pit. To put this in perspective, this wasn't a hole. This was practically a grave with a beach chair at the bottom. The basic physics of sand construction should have been a red flag. Sand, as any child who's built a sandcastle knows, has a tendency to collapse when you dig deep holes without proper support. But Daniel was committed to his vision of the perfect wind-free beach experience. He lowered his beach chair into his sandy tomb and climbed down to enjoy the shelter he had created. For a brief moment, everything seemed to be working according to plan. He was protected from the wind, sitting comfortably in his chair, master of his own little underground kingdom. Then the walls of his sandy fortress decided they'd had enough of defying gravity. The collapse happened quickly, burying Daniel under 5 feet of sand before he could react. Despite the frantic efforts of other beachgoers using their hands and shovels and rescue workers with heavy equipment, it took nearly an hour to free him. By then, it was too late. Daniel's quest for the perfect beach experience had turned into a textbook case of why engineering projects should be left to engineers. Number 5. Maryland has a snake problem. Our next Darwin Award winner proves that some hobbies are more dangerous than others, especially when they involve collecting creatures that can kill you with a single bite. Meet David Riston, a 49-year-old man from Pomfret, Maryland, who had developed what most people would consider an unusual passion, collecting venomous snakes. On January 19, 2022, authorities conducting a welfare check at David's house discovered him dead, but he wasn't alone. His home had become a serpentine paradise, housing 124 different species of snakes, many of them among the world's most dangerous. The collection included cobras, rattlesnakes, black mambas, and a gigantic python, all living in beautiful habitat enclosures that David had carefully constructed. From the outside, David appeared to be a responsible exotic animal keeper, providing proper housing and care for his slithering collection. His neighbors had absolutely no idea that they were living next door to what was essentially a private zoo filled with creatures that could kill them in minutes. The autopsy revealed that David had died of what was officially termed accidental snake envenomation. But the word accidental raises some interesting questions about the circumstances of his death. Did David make a careless mistake while feeding or cleaning an enclosure? Or did one of his serpentine residents simply decide that it had had enough of captivity and took matters into its own fangs? The report doesn't specify which species delivered the fatal bite, adding an element of mystery to David's death. With 124 potential suspects, each with its own method of delivering venom, the investigation reads like a reptilian murder mystery. Number 4. Rockhound Unhinged. Sometimes Darwin Awards go to artists whose dedication to their craft proves more permanent than they anticipated. Harvey Fite, a 72-year-old stonemason whose life's work was Opus 40, an ambitious stonework project in Hudson Valley, New York, that some compared to Stonehenge. Harvey had spent decades creating 6 acres of hand-built stone ridges, bridges, moats, and monuments, all quarried on site using traditional dry stack techniques. This wasn't just a hobby or a weekend project. This was Harvey's magnum opus, his masterpiece, the culmination of a lifetime spent mastering the ancient art of stonework. The scale of his project was breathtaking. Walls, ramps, stairways, placid pools, murky moats, and subterranean passageways that transformed the landscape into something truly extraordinary. Harvey was just a few years away from completing his dream when fate decided to intervene in the most ironic way possible. On May 9, 1976, Harvey was riding his lawnmower, probably surveying his stone kingdom and planning the final touches that would complete his life's work. Perhaps he was admiring a particularly well-built wall or envisioning how the finished project would look. What he wasn't paying attention to was the fact that he was rapidly approaching the edge of his own stone quarry. Harvey zoomed out onto a precipice and fell into the very quarry where he had spent years carefully extracting stone for his masterpiece. He died instantly, stone dead, in the place where his artistic vision was born. On the bright side, Harvey died doing what he loved, in the place he loved most. His heart, in a spiritual sense, truly remained in the amazing place he had created. Today, 40 years later, Harvey's heirs and successors are still squabbling over his rocky legacy, but his Darwin Award stands as permanent as the stone monuments he left behind. Number 3, Soaked to the Bone in Yellowstone. Our next Darwin Award winner demonstrates that college education doesn't necessarily include lessons in basic survival instincts or respect for natural warning signs. Colin Nathaniel Scott, a 23-year-old Portland resident who was celebrating his college graduation with a vacation at Yellowstone National Park in June 2016. Colin was exploring the park when he encountered the beautiful Pork Chop Geyser Hot Spring and decided he could use a good soak. Now, hot potting is strictly forbidden at Yellowstone for reasons that should be obvious to anyone with a basic understanding of chemistry or a functional survival instinct. The water temperature in these springs can reach over 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and they're filled with sulfuric acid that can dissolve organic matter faster. But Colin was fresh out of college and apparently thought his education had given him the smarts to know when park rules could be safely ignored. After all, what could park rangers possibly know that a college graduate didn't? Colin left the safety of the boardwalk and hiked up a hill in search of what he believed would be a private hot pot soaking spot. This area of Yellowstone is particularly dangerous because thin mineral crusts that look like solid ground actually conceal scalding water pools. One wrong step can send you plunging into water hot enough to cook you instantly. Remarkably, Colin managed to avoid these hidden death traps and found what appeared to be a secluded spring. He slipped and fell into the boiling acidic water, beginning what would be a very brief but very final chemistry experiment. Colin's body became the subject of rapid dissolution in a turbulent hot acid solution. Recovery workers struggled with dangerously unstable ground and a lightning storm, but by the time they reached the spring the next day, nature had completed her work. There were no remains remaining. Only a wallet and flip-flops were left of Colin, proving that Yellowstone's hot springs don't just cook visitors, they completely dissolve them. Number 2, steamy buns. Our next Darwin Award winner proves that some spiritual practices should probably be left to vegetables, rather than attempting them with human bodies. Meet Mr. Lim Ba, known professionally as Black Dog, a 68-year-old spiritual magician from Malaysia, who had been performing human steaming rituals for more than a decade, despite strong objections from his family. Lim specialized in a unique form of spiritual cleansing that involved literally steaming himself in a giant stainless steel wok, believing this practice would cleanse both body and soul. On October 25, 2017, at a temple in Kuala Sanglang, a small coastal village in northern Malaysia, Black Dog was preparing for what would be his final performance. The ritual setup was elaborate. Lim sat in lotus position inside the giant stainless steel steamer, while rice, sweet corn, and vegetarian buns were placed alongside him to also receive the steaming treatment. His devotees watched as Black Dog clasped his hands in prayer, the picture of spiritual serenity and confidence. The lid was then lowered over him, transforming him into a human-sized dumpling in what was essentially a massive pressure cooker. Then someone literally lit a fire under his buns. For 30 minutes, everything seemed to be proceeding normally. The steaming ritual was following its usual course, and Black Dog appeared to be handling the heat and humidity as he had many times before. But then this steamy scenario went tragically wrong. Devotees suddenly heard frantic knocking coming from inside the steamer, like a desperate Morse code being tapped out from within the metal chamber. The lid was quickly raised and steam came billowing out, obscuring their view of what lay inside. When the steam cleared, they found Lim unconscious, his body covered in major second-degree burns from the scalding water and superheated air. Despite attempts at medical intervention, Black Dog died of a heart attack brought on by the thermal trauma to his system. His decade-long practice of human steaming had finally reached its logical, if tragic, conclusion. Number 1. Gasping for votes. Our top Darwin Award winner demonstrates that political protest can be taken to deadly extremes, especially when your message involves cutting off your own air supply. It's October 19, 2015, during Canada's federal election, and a contentious issue is dividing the country: whether voters should be allowed to conceal their faces at polling stations. The debate had sparked passionate responses throughout Canada, with protesters finding creative ways to draw attention to the issue in the weeks leading up to Election Day. Some covered their heads with various clever disguises. Others wore masks or scarves, all trying to attract media attention to their cause. But in Montreal, a 24-year-old voter decided that subtle protest wasn't enough for such an important issue. He wanted to make a statement that would be impossible to ignore, something that would grab headlines and force people to pay attention to the faceless voter controversy. His solution was to appear at his polling station with a plastic bag over his head, turning himself into a walking, breathing example of the covered face voting issue. It was a bold statement, guaranteed to get attention from both voters and media. What he apparently didn't consider was the basic biological requirement for oxygen that makes plastic bags overhead such a universally bad idea. As he waited in line to cast his ballot, our dedicated protesters spent 45 minutes with his improvised face covering, breathing increasingly stale air. The plastic bag, designed to keep air out, was doing exactly what plastic bags do best: preventing the free flow of oxygen. During the wait, our political activist began to feel the effects of oxygen deprivation. His brain, starved of the oxygen it needed to function, started shutting down non-essential processes. First came dizziness, then confusion, and finally unconsciousness. He fainted in the voting line, leading to what medical examiners later described as death from respiratory complications. In a final ironic twist, our dedicated protester achieved a double elimination. He did not reproduce, and he did not vote. His powerful political statement had prevented him from participating in the very democratic process he was trying to protect. The lesson here is painfully obvious. If your protest method involves suffocation, you might want to reconsider your approach to political activism. After all, you can't change the world if you're not alive to vote. Bonus entry: the Elephant Relief Specialist. Our bonus Darwin Award winner proves that some jobs come with risks that go far beyond the usual workplace hazards, especially when they involve constipated elephants and questionable treatment methods. Meet Friedrich Riesfeld, a 46-year-old zookeeper in Paderborn, Germany, who took his job caring for animals very seriously. Friedrich was dealing with a delicate situation. One of the zoo's elephants was suffering from severe constipation and was clearly in distress. Being a dedicated animal care professional, Friedrich was determined to solve this problem and provide relief for the suffering pachyderm. His treatment plan was thorough and aggressive. He administered 22 doses of animal laxative, followed by more than a bushel of berries, figs, and prunes. This was already enough medication to move a mountain, let alone one constipated elephant. But Friedrich wasn't finished with his treatment regimen. He decided that the situation called for more direct intervention, so he prepared to administer an olive oil enema to the struggling elephant. This is where Friedrich's dedication to animal welfare collided head-on with the basic laws of physics and biology. As he was positioned behind the elephant, preparing to administer the enema, all of his previous treatments suddenly decided to take effect simultaneously. The elephant's digestive system, which had been blocked for days, suddenly achieved complete and explosive relief. The sheer hydraulic force of the elephant's unexpected bowel movement was unlike anything Friedrich could have anticipated. 200 pounds of elephant waste erupted with the force of a natural disaster, knocking Friedrich to the ground and burying him completely. The impact with the ground caused Friedrich to strike his head on a rock, while the continued avalanche of elephant excrement ensured that rescue was impossible. When zoo workers found him, Friedrich was buried under a mountain of evidence that his treatment had been dramatically successful. The elephant, finally relieved of its digestive distress, wandered off feeling much better, probably wondering why the helpful human had suddenly disappeared. Friedrich's dedication to animal welfare was admirable, but his failure to consider the potential consequences of success proved fatal. The lesson here is that when dealing with large animals and powerful medications, it's important to maintain a safe distance from the business end of your patient. And there you have it, 11 more examples of humanity's endless creativity in finding new ways to earn Darwin Awards. From spiritual magicians who steam themselves like dumplings, to political protesters who suffocated themselves for democracy. These stories remind us that common sense isn't as common as we might hope. Also, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss our next episode, where we'll bring you more tales of evolution in action. And if you know someone who could use a lesson in thinking before acting, share this video with them. You might just save a life. As always, stay smart, stay safe, and remember, Darwin is always watching. This is Wow Amazing, signing off until next time.